So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit black people. No. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit black people. No. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit black people. No, 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 no. Let's really be clear about that.
All right. Welcome back, folks. This is Joy, and this is going to be one of my first videos, of course, in a series about Kamala Harris and her record as a district attorney, then as the district attorney of San Francisco, then as AG in California, and then the few years that she has actually been in the U.S. And I know because she's been in the public eye for so long, really probably campaigned for the last 2 decades, we think that she's been a senator for all these years, but it's been for maybe two years since 2018. So this video will talk about her record. We'll look at what exactly it has and has not been. But, you know, there have been plenty of videos before breaking down Kamala's record. So I wanted to go beyond that and talking about not only her record, but a lack of record when it comes to specific policy for African Americans, American descendants of slavery. And I think I'm going to insert the Griot video at the beginning. If not, I'll insert it now so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. That not only has she had a bad record as a prosecutor, but for the African community, she's blatantly and explicitly said that I'm not going to do anything for just black people. And yet we see in the time that she's been a legislator, she's have all these set-asides and specifics for other groups. So I'm going to go through all that. Before I get started, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Again, I'm going to be bringing you election content up until November 3rd, up until we go out and vote, whether you're voting all the way to the top of the ticket or just down ballot. I know for me right now, I'm voting down ballot. I don't see either party getting close to satisfying what voting should be, which is an exchange. No one has earned my vote. I'll be talking about elections since then, specifically from an ADOS point of view. And of course, I'm always bringing you my celebrity news and my short documentaries. I think the next one's going to be about what happened to Beats by Dre. Hinted at this on my Twitter a while ago that since it was bought by Apple, whether this was intentional or not, Beats by Dre have disappeared really from the culture and the popular market. So I'm going to be bringing you those videos. Hit like and subscribe. The likes really do me good. And leave a comment. Tell me what you think about Kamala's record. What does it say and what doesn't it say? But let me go ahead and get started. So Kamala first came to office in 2004. She's elected as DA, District Attorney of San Francisco. And some may think of San Francisco as a city of love, a place where, you know, we all get along, but we know just across the bay, you know, foundation of the Black Panther Party, where the Black Panther Party was really founded. And then just shortly before Kamala assumed office from 2001 to 2004, there were more complaints about use of force from the San Francisco Police Department. There were more complaints about use of force than in San Diego, Seattle, Oakland, and San Jose combined. And this is from local newspaper, called the Orange County Register, about Kamala Harris's record. Still, as San Francisco's district attorney, Kamala was silent when the California Senate introduced legislation which would make public disciplinary proceedings. Now, in 2006, the California Supreme Court issued what they called the Copley decision, which barred public access to disciplinary hearings and proceedings of police officers who obviously are being investigated for violations while they're on duty or off duty, even off duty disciplinary proceedings. And while the legislation in California is fighting for the right to have access to these disciplinary proceedings in a city like San Francisco that has more use of force complaints than San Diego, Seattle, Oakland, and San Jose combined, Kamala Harris is completely silent, says nothing, does not fight for these police disciplinary proceedings to become public, but instead keeps her lips zipped and says nothing at all. It's not until 2018, yes, just a short 2 years ago, legislation was first passed in 2006, barring the public from these records. It's not until 2018, years after Trayvon, years after Mike Brown, and 7 years after Kamala has left her position as DA, that we finally get access, that legislation is finally passed, granting access to these disciplinary hearings. They cover all sorts of criminal acts from police officers that have been covered up because these records weren't available. So that's one thing. So this department is found to have abused confidential informants, misused their information, violated suspect rights, and Kamala Harris fights tooth and nail to uphold these convictions. But she's hailed herself today as a progressive prosecutor. Now, after being DA in San Francisco, Kamala, of course, rises to AG, Attorney General of California. She holds that spot from 2011 to 2017. Now, we know that in 2014, Mike Brown is killed in Ferguson by a police officer, murdered. Two days after Mike Brown is killed, police officers in Los Angeles shoot Ezell Ford, fatally shoot him, a 25-year-old black man. He has a history of mental illness. While she has the jurisdiction and ability to investigate these, again, Kamala Harris does nothing and instead defers to the city's district attorney, who eventually brought no charges. So 2 days after Mike Brown, and we saw all that happened afterwards in Ferguson, Kamala Harris, as she likes to tout, is the top cop in California and yet refuses to bring charges against police officers who have clearly done wrong. See here, pulling the quote from David Campos, who was a supervisor and police commissioner while Harris was district attorney, saying, "We never thought we had an ally in the district attorney. But you have someone saying all the right things now, but when she had the opportunity to do something about police accountability, she was either not visible, or when she was on the wrong side." So someone who supervised a police commissioner back then is saying she wasn't our ally, but she definitely wasn't our enemy. So our enemy's enemy is our friend, really, is what it comes down to. She's flip-flopped on defunding the police. Kamala writes this book in 2009 she calls Smart on Crime. She is at that point, she is district attorney, but she's got her eyes on AG. We all know in politics, you write a book and then you run for office. That's what you do. All these presidential candidates, the 20 plus that we saw over the last year, they all have books out. They all, wrote books in the years preceding. Kamala has one in her pre-AG days. It says, quote, "If we take a show of hands of those who would like to see more police officers on the street, mine would shoot up." Adding that, quote, "Virtually all law-abiding citizens feel safer when they see officers walking a beat." So very pro-police, whether you call it a dog whistle or blatant. She's saying that we're safer with cops around. We all feel safer with cops around. Now, I've talked about before, Kamala didn't even grow up here. Sure, she went to HBCU, born in Oakland, but she spent considerable time learning in India. Her formative years were spent going to high school in Toronto. So I can't think of many native black people, American descendants of slavery, nor even immigrant black people who would say they feel safer in this climate today with police around. Not the way they're beating ass and killing people for no reason. You can't even call the cops as a victim. without becoming a suspect. So no, I mean, even that first statement is crazy. But I say she flip-flops, and we see Kamala today who's saying, quote, after the killing of George Floyd, and of course in the midst of her presidential and now vice presidential run, quote, "It is status quo thinking to believe that putting more police on the streets creates more safety. That's wrong. It's just wrong." End quote. So I'm all for growth. I'll be the first person to say that there's nothing wrong with learning and becoming better. I'd be embarrassed to look at some of the stuff I wrote or thought just a few years ago. But I say growth is perfectly fine. But at least admit what you did before was wrong. At least own up to it. Because what Kamala does is she flip-flops, but never admits to wrongdoing. And that does not sit right with me. Somebody who can chameleon and change colors depending on where they're at. And I don't mean that even literally. I mean that just in the sense of, changing your opinion with the tides. But at least, look back and say, damn, what I did was really fucked up and I might want to do something to fix it. Like I might want to actually introduce legislation to undo the wrong that I did, or admit that I did wrong. So the people that are still rotting in jail that I refuse to let their paroles go through because I wanted to use them as cheap labor, I can at least admit that was wrong and not laugh it off when I'm asked about it in interviews. And so that's my problem with not what I call for Kamala changing her opinion, but really flip-flopping on these issues. And I alluded to that there, that we see Kamala really devaluing the lives and livelihoods and humanity of folks in prison being used for prison labor force. So the Supreme Court, of course, ordered California back when Kamala was AG to reduce prison crowding. Kamala says, instead of releasing more people, her office argued against, Kamala comes out and says, instead of releasing more parolees, we contend that it would be harmful to the state's prison labor force. And then, of course, she comes out later and said, I had no idea that this was coming from my office. I don't know. I've worked at a lot of organizations, and the last person to sign off is the boss lady or the boss man. Now, you may have other people look at the fine details, but everything that comes in front of you when it leaves your office. There may be a lot of things that you do within your office that, may not pass scrutiny, but anything that leaves your office, whether it's through email, the news, you know what's going on. So I don't buy it. Now, whether you're familiar with Kamala's comments from the Greer or not, this is as coming up on her presidential run. She announces, of course, on MLK Day at, I believe, Howard. Again, using blackness, but as I'm going to point out, doing nothing for black people. In fact, saying just the opposite, that she would not do anything for black people. And yet, as senator, when did she become senator? I want to make sure I have this right. 2018. That's what I thought. 2018. So I'm having a double check because, again, I'm thinking like, she's been a senator, she's been legislating, she's been not a top cop for years, but she's been a senator as long as Barry was, for about a year and a half, and then is running for office. So let me just look at what she's done since she's been a senator. So Trump came in, same time Kamala came in. Trump does his Muslim ban, and Kamala comes out strict opposition. Now, I believe in legal immigration, that folks should be able to move across the globe legally. My problem isn't with Kamala opposing the Muslim ban. My problem was with Kamala saying that she can't do specific stuff for just black people, but she can somehow find the gall and the fortitude to do specific things for other groups. Same with Trump's now stoppage of H-1Bs and similar visas. Kamala's coming out against that staunchly as a presidential candidate, and now a vice presidential candidate. And even you say, oh yeah, she may not have, any immigration bills that are specific to American descendants of slavery or African Americans, but she does have that Justice for Victims of Lynching Act, Senate Bill 3178, sponsored by Harris. Passes in the Senate, dies in the House. And this bill is way overdue. Now let me point out, Kamala, sponsors this bill, and it's passed by the Senate in December 2018. 1 month, folks, before Kamala announces that she's running for president. December 2018, Kamala announces in January 2019. 1 month before she announces, we get something that may have a semblance of benefit for American descendants of slavery, African Americans. And it does, but it's not just for Black people. So don't get that twisted or confused. This is a bill meant to protect all victims of potential hate crimes at the federal level. And nothing wrong with that. But don't say it's something that Kamala is doing for Black people. It's a federal hate crime that protects on the basis of race, color, religion, nationality against bodily injury. So this isn't just a bill that is long overdue, that, is rooted really in the lynching of African Americans, descendants of slavery, both post and pre-Civil War. And you see in her short time as a senator that she's turned, flip-flopped, and now supports legalized marijuana, although she prosecuted folks for low-level marijuana crimes while she was a district attorney. We see her support legalizing marijuana, a low-level crime, but still not apologize for treating truancy, or not even truancy, but really children, school children, missing school for legitimate and illegitimate reasons as a crime committed by the parents. Now we're in the education system, so I know that kids miss school for a number of reasons that have nothing to do with their willpower or desire to go. That lack of transportation, lack of food to eat, lack of clean clothes, lack of, a stable place to live. No fault of the kids, no fault of the parents. Do I believe that those parents and kids should have the opportunity to improve their circumstances and get to school? Sure. But I don't think the parents should be criminalized, especially if there isn't an extensive process to implement all those basic needs and ensure that both the kids and the families have these needs in place, these needs met before you criminalize them. Then these basic needs have to come first. Well, oftentimes school is that place where they happen. What are we doing to ensure that we're not criminalizing parents, Kamala, like you did and have yet to apologize for? So Kamala can do lots of things that benefit specific communities outside of Black folks, especially African Americans. And she can also do things that specifically harm us, like these truancy laws. And let me go to, what was that? Tone came out. Tone had the mom on the other day who's directly impacted by Kamala's truancy laws. Ridiculous. And that came up. Who is it? Cherie Peoples, daughter who is suffering from sickle cell and gets arrested on TV because her daughter has to seek medical treatment. So this Black woman is now a part of the criminal justice system unjustly And Kamala has yet to apologize to this woman or to give her any amount of redress. But my biggest problem with Kamala is a lack of leadership. There are a lot of things that Kamala has done in supporting, legal immigration and getting rid of these Muslim bans and restrictions on visas. So a lot of folks will say that is progressive, and introducing the anti-lynching legislation and specific legislation for LGBT folks, and supporting immigration and supporting abortion and being pro-sanctuary city and wanting to rid us of the NRA and so many other things. But none of these things are radical or new. So that is my biggest problem, is Kamala lacks leadership. I don't want to follow somebody who is just following somebody else. And that is what Kamala does. She's a follower. She's following what looks good, what everybody else has deemed as acceptable or as progressive enough to be both electable and liberal, desirable. Again, I will say, I don't want to follow somebody just following somebody else. And that is who Kamala is. She is just following others. I want somebody who knows that the systems that we have in place need to be completely dismantled. I need somebody who can stand up and say, what I used to do was bad and fucked up, and I need to change it. I need someone who's going to fight for reparations and actually do something specifically in exchange for my vote. A vote that prioritizes my community and my children. And if Kamala isn't going to do that, then I don't need more symbolism. I don't need another figurehead. I don't think any of us need that. None of us want more symbolism. Again, we learned that with Barack Obama. We don't need another figurehead to satiate us as a voting bloc or even as individual voters. We learned that lesson with Barack Obama. We also learned the lesson that we can't wait for these folks to get in office to promise that they're going to do something. We need that reassurance today, now. That if we're waiting for Kamala Harris to say that, to vote for her, and then promise ourselves that she's going to do something for just black people once she gets in office, then that's the old saying that we used to hear all the time as kids. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Are we going to fall for the okie doke again and elect a figurehead and more symbolism? Or are we going to say that we demand something for our vote, something, anything at all that is specific for our community? So for the deniers out there who say we should vote for Kamala anyway because her and Biden are the lesser of two evils, I challenge you to bring me one piece of evidence, one thing that Kamala has done in exchange for my vote. My vote that prioritizes reparations and economic justice for my community. My vote that prioritizes something, anything, in exchange for me going to the ballot and voting for the Democratic or Republican Party. I challenge you to bring me any evidence that Kamala or Biden have done anything beneficial to the black community as a whole, specifically the African American community, in the last 30 years. Please find that piece of evidence and I will eat my words, but I promise you it does not exist. So please do not give away your vote. Please do not give Kamala Harris and Joe Biden your vote if they're not willing to give us anything in return. And that's what I got, folks. Look it up. Write it down. Take a picture. We don't need to follow more followers. Leaders lead. And followers follow leaders. And so that's what we need. And Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are not it. Donald Trump and Mike Pence are not it. And once the elected officials out there, party heads, start saying that we will not vote for empty figureheads and more symbolism, maybe they'll start giving us something in exchange for our votes. Until then, I tell you folks, stick around because I will have more on the upcoming election. And I appreciate you listening to what I had to say. Kamala Harris, I could go over her prosecutorial record all day, both as DA and AG, but really it's the same thing over and over again. A lack of leadership, a lack of audacity, a lack of real willingness to do anything for the people who need it the most, the people who have been disenfranchised for the last 400 years, 250 years of slavery, and another 150 of oppression. If Kamala can't do something for the folks that obviously have been disenfranchised and hurt the most, damn, who can you do something for? That's all we ask. All right, that's what I got, folks. Like and subscribe, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.